Hey there, I'm Susie McIntyre Eaton. Thank you for joining us on Jesus Listens Stories of Prayer. Today we're going to be listening and visiting with Jessica Ronne. She is an amazing lady who has a mission. She was a young widow with 4 children. She married a man with 4 more children. They had 8 children to take care of a child. She's written a book. She has a podcast. So let's go and have some conversation with Jessica. Thank you for coming and being here for the show on Jesus Listens. You've got quite a story. You were a young widow with 4 children and one with disabilities. Let us know your backstory and how you were raised and how God prepared you for that.
I often say that my life changed forever in 2004 when I went to what I thought was a routine ultrasound appointment for my second child.
Mhm.
And it was there that we were told he had experienced a stroke in utero and there was no hope. It was suggested that we terminate that pregnancy. My husband and I did not want to terminate. We decided to put the baby in the Lord's hands. And Lucas was born on August 12, 2004, and that was the day I became a forever caregiver. Fast forward a couple of years later, and my husband was diagnosed with a terminal brain tumor. He fought brain cancer for 3 years and he passed away in August 2010. At that point, I was a 33-year-old young mom of 4 children under 7, including one with profound disabilities.
I would think that you had your hands full enough to just take care of your children. If you have just 4 children without disabilities, you are a busy woman, and then without a husband to help. What caused you to want to help others in this? Was God showing you ways that you could make your life better, easier? In what ways do you help other people with caregiving?
The thread has always been Lucas. Like when we need something for Lucas, we reach out and start a resource. So, we were desperate for respite when we lived in rural Tennessee. We didn't have any breaks ever. And then, as he aged and he started to go through puberty, he became very aggressive. We had a lot of behavioral issues. He was nonverbal. And I thought, the world just needs to know about families like mine. And we were just desperate for a break and there was nothing. So I just thought to myself, you know what, maybe we need to start a nonprofit because if we're so desperate for a break, there has to be other families out there too that are just suffering in isolation and they just need a break once in a while. We partnered with a local school that let us offer free breaks for parents who had children with disabilities. So that led to the Unseen documentary, bringing awareness to families like mine. And then most recently, he, is a 20-year-old young man who still is aggressive, who still has a lot of needs, 24/7 care. And we thought, what does his future look like? It's not necessarily fair that his siblings have to lay down their lives to care for their brother. And so we started looking at the possibility of creating a group home for him. And we did create that, and he moved into that home in February with 3 other disabled adults. So most of my work has always been around Luke and my family, and that has trickled over into other special needs families for sure. But it's always been about solving our problem, which in turn helps solve other people's problems as well.
I applaud you and for what you're doing, because I see some older people with an older child sitting at their table, in a restaurant, and they have given their lives to take care of that child.
And it's beautiful, but at some point you're going to die. And
Yes.
then what happens to your son or daughter? I mean, they get put in the system and it's not good if you don't have some sort of say over their care for the rest of their lives. And we just thought, we're not willing to take this risk. We need to create a solution if we are able to. And so we did. We went ahead and created a solution, and now we're in a massive transitional phase of life.
Yeah.
Lucas adapted beautifully. It's been way more challenging for me trying to figure out who I am now because I'm not his primary caregiver anymore. Caregiving is holy work. It is the holiest work we can do this side of eternity. Caregiving makes us more like Jesus than any other thing we will do. If we look at Christ's example of washing feet and healing lepers and hanging out with prostitutes and tax collectors, and Jesus was in those smelly, stinky, uncomfortable spaces. And when we are serving the least of these, including our children with profound disabilities, we are becoming more Christ-like. And we might not see our reward this side of eternity. We might only see our reward when we enter into heaven and hear, "Well done, good and faithful servant."
Right.
That is why we continue to run our race. That is why we continue to show up for our loved ones
Mm.
in those uncomfortable, exhausting spaces, because Jesus is pleased with our work.
Jessica, it's been a true honor to hear your story and to hear the resources that you are offering to other people.
There are so many emotions that a caregiver experiences. There's such a range from joy to pain to just anger, and to feel all of those and to stay present and to continue to trust the Lord day by day and step by step.
You also have a podcast. What's the name of your podcast?
Yep, Coffee with Caregivers. It should come up everywhere. And I typically just interview caregivers of children with disabilities. I am kind of contemplating maybe expanding that in the future, but that is what it's been so far. Just very honest, vulnerable conversations about what it's like and how we can better support these caregivers of these, profoundly
Right.
disabled individuals. I would just like to say I'm humbled that the Lord used me to speak encouragement and hope into really hard and holy spaces. I know that it is an exhausting endeavor to care for an individual. It's exhausting for a few weeks, and it's particularly exhausting if you're doing it for 20, 30, 40 years. And the very last devotional in this book is called Hold On, because you have no idea what the Almighty has in store for you when He flips your page.
I would love to read November 24th with you as a prayer for our listeners today. My loving Lord, I ask you to increase my thankfulness. I've learned that being thankful not only brightens my day, but opens my heart more fully to you. I long to encounter you in the midst of my circumstances, so I'll look for signs of your presence as I walk along the path of life. A grateful attitude opens both my heart and my eyes, enabling me to see you in myriad tiny details as well as in the big picture of my life. I have good reason to be joyful because you're absolutely worthy of my thankfulness and trust. In your great name, Jesus. Amen. I'm Susie McIntyre Eaton. Thank you for joining us on Jesus Listens Stories of Prayer. We'll be back next week with another guest and another story. But until then, remember that Jesus cares for you, He listens to you, and He's always just a prayer away. God bless you.